Welcome to the Mission Compass Strikes Back. Yes, episode 2. Last week we talked to Kate Michel and Stan Jeter here on the Mission Compass. They had so many great stories and so much help for us to get involved in the Great Commission that we asked them to come back and share even more. So every week here on the Mission Compass, we want to get you involved in the Great Commission. It's your guide to the Great Commission. Stan's got a way for you to use your cell phone. Yes, to tell God's story. He's got great tips and tricks. And hey, before you start watching here, open up another tab, gna.news. So when he starts talking, you can actually follow along on their website. Kate Michel joins us from Radio 4VH. More testimonies of what she saw when she went down to Haiti. Yeah, even though the government's saying don't go, Haiti's too dangerous, it's not what she found. God is moving in Haiti, so sit back, relax. Bonnie Saylor's going to share from God's Word, and then we want to share with you about how you can get involved in the Great Commission. So settle in, relax, Mission Compass coming your way.
Welcome to Galcom's Mission Compass podcast. To learn more about Galcom and our guests today, visit galcom.org.
And it just sent chills down my spine, not only because she had an amazing voice, but that she should be singing such a profound song to an audience of young people in villages and towns across Haiti.
Hello, friend. We're glad you're here today to join us on Galcom's Mission Compass, your guide to the Great Commission. I'm Ron Harris. What does it take to be a missionary today? Well, it may take someone just like you, with the unique skills and abilities God gave you to do your part in the Great Commission. And here's your host, Galcom's Tim Whitehead, to tell you more.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, friend, for joining us here on the Mission Compass. Later on in the program, we're going to finish our conversation with Kate Michel, just back from Haiti. As I said last week, against my better judgment, against the travel advisories on the government websites too. But she was there, and God just showed her what 4VH is doing there. Great testimonies. You don't want to miss that. Stan Jeter, of course, joins us every month. He was with us last week, but he had so much to tell us what God is doing around the world. We didn't get to our little tips and tricks on how to use your cell phone to tell God's story. So Stan comes back this week to finish off his presentation. But before we get to any of that, we want to give you an update of what God is doing through the ministry of Galcom, what God is doing through you and your prayers and giving towards the ministry of Galcom. So Al White's joining us again. Al was with us about a month ago because we were trying to put a radio station up in Waskaganish, Quebec. You have to look it up on a map. I had never heard of it before, but I was actually traveling home from India. You ever watch those kind of flight trackers as you're flying over the world and it tells you what you're flying over? For some reason, it listed Waskaganish, Quebec. And I'd never heard of it until we started working up there. But Al is back with us to tell us what God is doing. Al, great to have you back in studio.
Thanks, Tim.
And it's great that God kept you guys safe. You traveled back and forth. How many hours, how many kilometers back and forth to Waskaganish? Twice.
Over 1,300 kilometers each way.
So a month ago, you shared about how halfway up there to Waskaganish, you were stopped by wildfires. Real quick, tell us the story about the people you met in Amos.
Yeah, so we met Danielle and Isabel Dupuis. You may remember from my time with you last time that we felt that as we couldn't go any further, we needed to try and find out how we could be used in Quebec. We'd come a long way just to turn around and go home. So God led us to this couple, and it just happened that they were being commissioned to begin a work in Amos, where they've been living since 2005.
Friends, go back, go on our website, galcom.org, hit the Mission Compass button, and you'll see the list of our podcasts there, and you'll hear the story firsthand there as Al and Hank, who are going up there to just do radio work, were able to be a real blessing to this couple and start a friendship. And so pray for the Dupuis as they work as missionaries in Quebec, one of the largest unreached people groups in the world. 8 million people, less than 1% Christian. So, Al, that trip you got turned back, but you finally got up there. The first trip, tell us what you and Hank did and how God answered prayers even then.
Yeah, so we left Hamilton area around 2 a.m. as we did the time before so we could miss traffic. And we knew that we were passing through Amos where the Dupuis are around lunchtime. And so I just let them know that we'd be picking up some material that we'd left with them that we thought would be 2 weeks and turned out to be almost 2 months. So we got there and very gracious. They had a meal for us and we had a blessed time of fellowship before heading back out again. We arrived in Waskaganish, couldn't believe it. It was 36 Celsius when we got out of the truck. Next morning we got up to work and it was 8 degrees Celsius and raining. Well, it hadn't started raining yet. We were able to get out and clear the area where the hole was, but as soon as the backhoe arrived, it was pouring rain, so he's working with his windshield wiper on digging the hole, and it's filling up with water. And we looked on the weather forecast and it said it was going to rain, 100% rain all day. We thought, well, what do we do? So we came in. I had some emails to do. I had my phone there. I went to a Zoom meeting and we were praying. The people at Galcom were praying. And at 2 o'clock, Hank, the guy that went with me, a concrete guy, looks out the window. He says, I'm going to go and see if I can empty the hole. It stopped raining. So he went out and with his shovel, he got all the sludge out of the hole. And yeah, it had stopped raining.
Because pouring concrete in the rain doesn't quite work.
Or putting the forms up in a wet
Yeah.
hole is kind of not what you want. So anyway, he had rubber boots, so he was down in the hole, and I passed him the form, and I screwed it together from the top. By 6 o'clock, we had the form all in. So God held off the rain, and we missed our appointment to have the concrete poured at 4 o'clock. We're told that we couldn't have it poured any other day except the Wednesday, and that's why we were working hard in the rain. But it turns out that when we got up there, the guy says some other job had been postponed, so he was able to show up on Thursday morning and pour the concrete, so which he did, and went over to the local restaurant run by a believer who has an incredible testimony of what God's done in his life, and then hopped in the truck and began our drive home. And we were able to stop for supper this time with the Dupuis. On our way back, they insisted in giving us supper, and then we arrived back into Hamilton area, I think about 4 a.m.
Oh, my. So we had to wait for the concrete to cure before we can go back up and put the tower. We only got about 2 minutes here, but real quick then, God assembled a great team for you to go back up and put up this tower in Waskaganish.
Yeah, so 2 weeks later, we knew that the weather was getting colder. We had to get back up, and I'd met a guy named Rick Haminga at a men's retreat last year, and he was a tower guy, and he wanted to go with us, and he was an expert with these towers. So anyway, he managed to squeeze time in his schedule, and we did. And God gave us 2 or 3 brilliant days, just beautiful sunshine and warm weather to be able to get the tower all up and finished. And yeah, now we're reaching out to about 3,500 people in the area with more. There's cottages as well, but in this town itself, there's probably 3,500.
But in Rick's church, there was another gentleman that had some story with Waskaganish.
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story, but when there was one man in the church that when he'd heard that we were heading up to Waskaganish, that he'd been there in the 1980s helping to build the church where the radio station is installed at, and he knew the pastor, Paul Moses, so he came along with us. He's in his 80s now, 84 years of age. You wouldn't know it, but he came along and he was helping us pulling the tower sections up the mast.
So that's great that God used someone you met at a men's retreat, trained specifically on these towers to come and help you put up the tower. And just as a bonus, someone that built this church 40 years ago was able to go up and see the fruit of his labor and to be part of it and the next level of outreach. Yeah. So tell us, at Waskaganish, you said 3,500 people. What's the expectation now when the gospel gets out to them every day? What's the need there?
Yeah, there's a lot of need. There's a lot of believers. Actually, there'd been a revival there back in the 1950s, late 50s, early 60s. A lot of people are drifting, but have a root. They have a knowledge of Christ, and I think the radio station will be good to be able to keep them on track, to encourage them in the faith, help those who are maybe drifting and are not coming into church anymore to be able to still hear the word of God.
And that's the blessing of radio, too. You can listen to it in the privacy of your own home. If you've got things you're dealing with, you don't want to show up to church, but you hear the gospel and the Holy Spirit draws you back in. Always great to see when things get accomplished. You know, this one was a long time coming, years before we can get that in. So it's great that you guys were able to get up, finally get that concrete poured, get the tower up, get the antenna attached, and now the gospel's going out. Great news. Praise the Lord.
Thank you, Tim.
Dimitri started following Jesus several years ago, and in that time, he'd stopped doing drugs. But then he relapsed. I'm Bonnie Sala with Reset. On a trip back to Dimitri's hometown, old places called out old habits, and one thing led to another. Torn up with shame and feeling like a failure, Dimitri didn't want to attend church that week. We all sometimes compromise our values because of temptation, distraction, or fear. But in reality, nothing is more relatable to humanity than weakness. The devil wants your stumbles to overwhelm you with shame and despair that result in you giving up entirely. But stumbling in sin isn't the same as failing in our whole faith journey. Jesus ate a significant meal with his disciples, one where he made them a powerful promise. Scripture recounts, as they were eating, Jesus took some bread and blessed it. Then he broke it in pieces and gave it to the disciples, saying, "Take this and eat it, for this is my body." And he took a cup of wine and gave thanks to God for it. He gave it to them and said, "Each of you drink it, for this is my blood, which confirms the covenant between God and his people. It is poured out as a sacrifice to forgive the sins of many." Jesus was prepared to lay down his life for his followers, dying to secure their forgiveness. He did this knowing that his best friends would all betray him just a few hours later. So Jesus knows that at some point we'll stumble, struggle, and make mistakes. When we do, we can get right back up, acknowledge the sin, turn from it, and run toward God with whole hearts for forgiveness. I'm Bonnie Sala with Reset. To hear this again, read or share this, or to find more resources like this, visit guidelines.org.
Well, friend, every month here on the Mission Compass, we visit with Stan Jeter, founder director of the Global News Alliance, telling God's story, sharing a story from around the world, what God is doing, and encouraging you to tell God's story too. Be a witness. Stan, give us a tip on how we can tell the story. You have the whole thing there at gna.news, all the tips and tricks to use your cell phone to be a witness for Christ. How about a quick tip for our listeners today?
Absolutely, Tim. We have talked in the past about the 3 basic shots that you want to take to cover a story. I'm talking about framing. So the first shot is a wide shot, an establishing shot, so that you can see the context of what's going on. And the second is a medium shot where you come in a little bit closer and show a group of people or some activity, but it's a medium shot. And then there is a detail shot or a close-up shot that you come real close and you can show what the activity is. Perhaps you have a picture of the hands handing a basket to somebody, or maybe a little bit wider so you can see the person is receiving, the person is giving. But I'd like to encourage you today, once you get those basic shots, to try a different angle, getting a different perspective. Think high or low or framed. Framed as in framing a scene through a window or through a doorway or maybe between a couple of trees, sort of act as a frame for your story. It makes the shot more interesting. Another is to get high. You know, we're used to shooting everything at eye level, but if you get high, you give a different perspective. Drones, of course, come to mind, but if you don't have a drone to shoot a scene, you can get into, a second-story window or climb a ladder, get up in a tree like Zacchaeus, get a different view of what's going on, or get a lower angle. If you're shooting a story with children, for example, get down to their level, get down to eye level with the kids, or maybe shoot something from a low angle looking up. So try different angles, make your story more interesting visually by using a variety of shots.
Acts 1:8 says, "You'll be my witnesses." Friends, let's be witnesses for Christ, what God is doing in our lives, in our church, in our community. Visit gna.news for all of the advice and tricks and tips that they have there. Stan, always love it when you come in and share these encouraging stories and opportunities for us to get involved. God bless you, Stan.
Thanks, Tim. You too.
Stories can move us emotionally. They bring us into a world of joy and sadness. Stories help us ask how we would react if we were there. Galcom International presents Stories of the Great Commission.
The Trash Mountain, the family, they are from somewhere, they live around the Trash Mountain. They get up at night, they use a flashlight on their head, and at night, hundreds of flashlights on the Trash Mountain because they pick up the garbage at night. It's more cooler and more easier for them. So it's very sad to hear that, but we are blessed to be with them and to share them the love of God and give them something that we can give. So it's a blessing for them.
Discover the greatest challenge ever given to man, the Great Commission. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every living creature. Learn more at galcom.org, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Galcom International. Make waves.
You may be listening to us on your computer, but you can also find us on your smartphone using Spotify, iTunes, or other streaming platforms. Just go to galcom.org and choose your favorite. Make sure to subscribe, follow, and share our podcast.
Well, friend, last week we caught up with our very good friend here at Galcom, Kate Michel, Director of Communications for Radio 4VEH in Cap Haitian, Haiti. Actually, I was at a meeting and I was talking to their board chair, and he kept on saying Radio 4VH, and I kept on correcting him. Radio 4VH, Voix Évangélique d'Haïti, the voice of evangelism in Haiti. Kate Michel joins us again because, hey, we got talking, and she's got so many stories. I thought we just need to be encouraged. Kate, thanks for giving us some more of your time.
Thank you, Tim.
So if you missed last week's episode of the Mission Compass, just visit our website, galcom.org, click on the Mission Compass icon. You can see the podcast version there. Get caught up on what is going on in Haiti, what's going on with the ministry. But Kate just had some encouraging stories. We just kept chatting after our interview last week. And so, Kate, you have some other stories about your visit and what God is doing in Cap Haitian, in the region there. Share some more encouraging stories, because we don't get enough good news from Haiti.
I wanted to tell you about a guy we met who was on his bicycle. So I shared about this lady that we went to visit. She'd lived about an hour from Cap Haitian, and she's 100 and something years old, and she'd gathered all her family together to receive this team from 4VEH. Well, they treated us so well. They blessed us with a wonderful meal of rice and beans and all kinds of wonderful stuff. So we didn't actually need the sandwiches that we had taken with us. So we finished our visit, we started the drive home, and we were heading out of the small rural town where she lives, started to throw it down with rain. And we passed a guy on his bicycle. And so we were like, hey, we've got these sandwiches. Let's just share the blessing here. So we stopped, and the guy on his bike started talking. His name is Alius. And we said, this was Pastor Ewad, our evangelist and radio distribution leader. And Pastor Ewad says, hey, we're from 4VEH and we'd love to just bless you with these sandwiches. And Alius, the guy, says, oh, 4VEH, we love 4VEH. I've been listening to 4VEH since the time of Brother Lulu, who was a presenter, I think, in the 1950s or 60s, maybe.
Oh, my goodness.
And so this guy had been listening to 4VH ever since. So you just never know who you're going to meet on the street who knows and loves 4VEH and is a faithful listener, and, you know, is so blessed by the ministry that they're so excited that we're from 4VEH. So I just wanted to add that to the story that we'd shared about meeting the 108-year-old lady.
So my first trip to Haiti was with Kate way back. And when she was explaining the ministry and her role there, her husband, Storley, recorded the Bible in Haitian Creole and did the voiceover, I think, for the Through the Bible. So if you're familiar with the J. Vernon McGee Bible lesson radio program, Storley's the voice. And you said to me, Kate, at the time, well, Storley's a bit of a rock star down here. Everybody knows him. Everybody knows his voice. They know his name. And so you're Madame Storley. You're pretty popular there too. And so it's true. Everywhere you go, everybody knows 4VEH. Everybody knows, Storley Michel. Oh my goodness, they're coming to our town. It's incredible. The impact that this radio ministry has. So you're not over-exaggerating this, that this guy probably has been listening since the 50s faithfully. Like 4VH is life.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. We have a lovely quote from a listener who said, 4VH is so much more than a radio station. It's literally God sowing out seeds of hope every day. And that is literally what it is. You know, every broadcast that goes out is sowing seeds of hope, gospel hope, that is planted and watered every day. And then the fruit that comes from that is just incredible. So I'm glad you shared that about how well known or how well recognized Storley is, my husband, because another story I wanted to share with you is I was at the broadcast center, and there was a group of children sitting under the gazebo in the grounds, and they were there with 2 or 3 leaders from their children's group, which was from the Methodist Church of Cap Haitian. And they were visiting 4VEH to record the children's program that is on every Sunday afternoon. So this children's program is usually a group of kids who come and they sing songs, they play instruments, they recite poetry, they recite Bible verses, they tell jokes, and the show is called Children's Club for Jesus. And so I was greeting the children, and one played the recorder for me, another sang a solo, practicing for their appearance on the show. And then one of the leaders came and said to me, do you want to meet this little guy? Because his name is Dorley, and his mother named him after Dorley on 4VEH. So, so I went over and I said hello to little Storley, and I asked him if he knew that my husband was named Storley. And I asked him to say, bonjour, Storley, hello, Storley. So I have this lovely little video of little Storley saying, hello, Storley. So that's fantastic when you see that people are wanting to name their children after the voices that they hear on 4VH, who happens to be someone very special to me.
The children's program is every Sunday, but you also do something very special during the summer for a youth program.
That's right.
Everything that you guys do practically, content-wise, just it hits the mark, all of it. You have a live call-in prayer program every day around noon. Through the Bible is being taught. You just have the Bible being read. I remember Storley actually telling a story to me about a lady that came to the station to say hello to him, and she wouldn't leave. He had meetings all day. She'd stayed there, waited for hours to thank him. And she started reciting the Bible back to him. She's completely non-literate, but because you guys read the Bible over the air, that was her Bible, listening to Radio 4VH. So tell us about the youth program and how you're meeting that need and reaching that demographic.
Right. So you can imagine school breaks up for summer vacation. Kids are sitting around looking for things to do. If they have good influences, it can lead them one way. If they don't have anything to do, it can end up leading them down a bad path. And so this is the 31st year that 4VEH has had special programs through the summer for young people. So every Monday through Friday, a 2-hour live program in Haitian Creole in the morning and a live French program in the afternoon. These programs are hosted by a team made up of our staff and young people volunteering. And these programs are full of music and good talk, encouraging topics. There's a Bible knowledge quiz that goes through the whole summer. And then every Friday afternoon, there is a live quiz game show. Picture a game show. It's like a live game show between two youth teams. So at the broadcast center where our radio station and TV station is located, we have an auditorium upstairs. And so this event is in the auditorium. And we have two teams who are battling against each other in Bible knowledge, general knowledge, history, lots of questions I couldn't answer, to become the champions of the whole summer. So when I was there, it was 3 o'clock, time for the live show to begin, and one of the teams hadn't shown up. And we were starting to wonder how this was going to go. But thankfully, our summer program coordinator, Newton, and the others on the team managed to come up with a plan to form a team from audience members. So they asked for volunteers from the audience. They had 6 young people who volunteered to be on the team. And thankfully, we then had a good live show to watch with these two teams battling it out. It's great entertainment. It's a great time of fellowship for young people. And there's always a recording artist, a worship leader, a recording artist who comes and performs. Now, this Friday, the Friday that I was there was special because the recording artist was one of our summer program volunteers. She was presenting one of the shows. We have a lot of talented people on staff and who volunteer at 4VEH. So our presenter, Alexandra, was the recording artist who performed during the live game show. And she did this just a beautiful rendition of His Eye is on the Sparrow. He's always watching over me. And it just sent chills down my spine, not only because she had an amazing voice, but that she should be singing such a profound song to an audience of young people, and it was being heard by others in, villages and towns across Haiti. What a blessing to be able to offer that to young people in Haiti today, giving them alternatives for what they may end up in if it wasn't for that good, positive Christian influence from 4VEH.
Yeah. Friends, last week we started off our conversation talking to Kate about a 100-year-old lady that was listening, and we finished here talking about the youth and everybody in between, the very vital ministry of Radio 4VH in the north of Haiti. If you want to help, if you can help, we shared a lot last week. Go back onto our podcast on galcom.org and visit Mission Compass. Click the icon there to listen to last week's episode. We need to support the staff that are working there, are providing this content, providing this ministry. 4vh.org/donate. That way you get to the English version of the website. And so you don't get confused when you see the Haitian Creole there. So 4vh.org/donate if you're in the US. You can give to Radio 4VH visiting galcom.org. And when you click on the donate button there, just make sure in the memo line you put 4VEH, and we'll make sure that 100% of what you give goes to the ministry there to keep them on the air. They got to buy diesel fuel to keep the generators going. They got to keep the staff paid. It's very difficult times for them there. We want to get behind this wonderful radio ministry in Haiti. Kate, thank you so much for giving us so much of your time.
Thanks, Tim.
Well, friend, we're at the end of our program today, and you've been listening to Galcom's Mission Compass, your guide to the Great Commission. There are many ways to partner with us. To find out more, visit our website at galcom.org. That's Galcom, spelled GALCOM.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I'm Ron Harris. Thanks for joining us today on Mission Compass, a radio ministry of Galcom International.
If you enjoyed this podcast, we upload a new episode every Monday. You can also find us on the radio or other streaming platforms. We have a list on our website. Make sure to subscribe, follow, and share our podcast. Please rate this episode and leave a review. We'd love to hear back from you. And we also want to know where you're listening from. So click Mission Compass on our website, tell us, and we'll send you Galcom's devotional, 30 Days of Faith.